Hello. I have two different ideas, two different quotes that I want you to hold in your head for the remainder of this conversation. The first one is from the Apostle Paul, and he writes in the book of Romans, "Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And the second is from Alan Watts, and he says, "We are under no obligation to be the same person that we were just 5 minutes ago." So about 2.5 months ago, I came home from school, and I didn't like where I was as a person. I didn't love the habits I slipped into, the frames of mind that didn't serve me. And even though I had a really good season at the plate, the game was just kicking my butt for baseball. I remember hearing one time about how even Elvis Presley, at the end of his life, became an Elvis impersonator. And that is the best way that I could describe how I felt a couple months ago. I felt like I was becoming a caricature of myself, and one that I didn't really like who I was becoming. I had some sort of felt obligation to be someone who I didn't want to be. And so I came back home and I knew I wanted to change. And I didn't play ball this summer, which was the first summer in my life that I actually have not done that. And I still trained every day, and I worked my tail off this whole summer, but just the mini break from the game, the break from being at the field all night, every night, gave me a lot of excess time to do some thinking and to enact some change in my life. And that's what I want to talk about today. And so with all this excess time to sort of go through the filing cabinet of my mind, and by also, clearing the inputs that didn't serve me, the things that I didn't want entering into my head, which is a topic for another day I want to talk about. What I started to become aware of this summer is just so many different beliefs that didn't serve me, that I've held on to for so long. And awareness, being conscious of the decisions, the things that we are doing, is often the largest, and it's certainly the first step in catalyzing change we want to implement in our lives. Makes me think of that Carl Jung quote: "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But obviously, by the title of this podcast, that is something I no longer believe. I believe that we can change our stars. So as I was talking about, there's just so many beliefs that I held, and I think that we all hold, that don't serve the people that we want to become. There's this line in this song. We used to sing the song a lot, actually. It's called "Make Room," and we just sang it again the other night, and it hit me in a whole different way because I think it conveys exactly what I'm trying to tell you about here. And it says, "Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion." And this is what I'm talking about. We pick up these beliefs from our culture, the people around us, the way that we were raised, that just prevent us from living in the life abundant, from worshiping in spirit and in truth. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts that there's more out there for us than just religious or cultural norms. There is authentic connection with the creator of the universe, and that is just often held back by fear of social rejection, just these walls that we build up of things that we can't do, or rules that we have to follow, that when we become aware of them, which, like I said, awareness is the big thing, then we can have the agency to change them. An important caveat here, that I don't think that these beliefs are necessarily sinful, these beliefs that we pick up along our road of life. But I'll tell you what they don't do, what they didn't do for me, and I'm guessing they don't do for you, and that is live the life abundance, which I think is available to us as believers and followers of the Lord Jesus. And so, another analogy from the scriptures that I think really does best explain what I'm talking about in the change that has occurred in my life, and that I hope for everyone else. And it is the story of the two foundations: a life built on the rock, on a firm foundation, or anything else that we try and build our lives upon. And what I tried to do for my pretty much my entirety walk with the Lord up until a couple of months ago is I tried to add him on to whatever foundation I was trying to build on the world. I wanted to hold on to both him and the world. I wanted to serve two masters, and I wanted him to be part of my life instead of my life. He can do so much when you let him build from the ground up. And to go back to what I was talking about previously about all these limiting beliefs that I discovered, I see those as almost pillars that held up what I used to have as my foundation, which wasn't the Lord Jesus. I might have said it was, but it wasn't. And when I put his word, when I put him at the base, I don't need those anymore. And they don't serve me. They don't allow me to live a life abundant. And I'm going to keep repeating that because I think there is persuasion and repetition. And that is so important that we are called. There's so much in Jesus. There is. But it doesn't come from just half surrendering. You have to let him break down those old pillars, those old walls of tradition that we built up, and just let him have it all. Worship in spirit and truth, and let him build your life from the ground up. And with the Lord at my foundation, I have no reason for these beliefs anymore. He is all I need because he is enough. And so yeah, that has been this season of my life. And with caution of not trying to sound too ethereal or out here, but I just felt like what happened to me this season of my life is that the Lord just unraveled these layers of my mind so that he could set his foundation at the bottom, just deeper into my being. And I said before I was going to give some examples of these different beliefs. Well, one was this idea that I internalized somewhere along the way growing up, that I had to walk on eggshells around those who love me, including my family members. Or this idea that I couldn't branch out and start something new because of social judgment, and I couldn't do something like start a podcast because someone would judge me. And I listen a lot to Mr. Alex Hormozy, and he talks so much about why do we let the judgments of people that aren't even going to be at our own funerals, why do we let them hold them back from doing things that we want to and doing the things that we feel could serve other people well, despite the social judgment or rejection that we might weather along the way. And I lived my life for so long thinking that the cost wasn't worth it. The cost wasn't worth it to put my hands up and to worship boldly and to sing to the Lord in public, or to do something like this because people would judge me. But that's a belief that doesn't serve me, and that's a pillar on an old foundation that if I look at the cost of doing it versus not doing it, the cost of inaction is so much more. But it took that time to think and to reflect and to internalize, like, why am I letting these people dictate who I do? And it's usually, like, this is another thing Mr. Hormozy says, is that it's like, we have this idea of like one or two people in our life who will judge us for stepping out of our shoes. And it's like, who cares? You're going to let them be the reason that you don't pursue what you want, that you don't try and become the person that you want to be. It really is foolish once you think about it and get down to brass tacks. Galatians 1:10, am I seeking the approval of man or God? And changing these beliefs is obviously a lot easier said than done. Talk is so cheap, action is so hard to come by. And I think the real problem is, and I was talking about this with a friend a couple of months ago, is that we hold, it's not like these beliefs, these false pillars, they just get stuck in our head. We start to believe them in our nervous system, in our body, especially if we grew up believing them. They become wired into us. So changing them is like swimming upriver. It's like our body is uncomfortable and it's telling us that we shouldn't do the exact thing that we need to do to change because it learned that the other way was safe. But we can do hard things. We as people we can do hard things, and we owe ourselves the difficulty. We really, really do. And so yeah, that is what I have been learning, that we can change our stars. That we don't have to just keep running down the road that we think was laid out for us, the road that we have that felt obligation to trek. But we can start our own path, and through surrender and war against the beliefs that don't serve us on a daily basis, we can become whoever we want to be and whoever the Lord wants us to be. People who change, people who do great things on this side of heaven, they have to decide one of those 5-minute intervals, going back to the very first thing that I talked about. They have to decide that one of these 5-minute intervals is going to be the catalyst of change, that they're turning their lives around, their beliefs around, starting right now. And the question is, like, what stops us from making that right now? Why do we have to wait for some big event in our lives? And half the time after the big event and we say we're going to change, we revert back to who we said we wouldn't be a couple weeks later. But that doesn't have to be the case. We can change our stars. And it starts with awareness, giving time and silence to think through and to let the Lord reveal the beliefs in our lives that don't serve us. And like I said, I know I'm saying these things over and over, but there's persuasion and repetition, and it's so important to hear these things. That with awareness of the script that is running our lives, and with further realization that our bodies will fight like hell to preserve who it found as safe, to preserve what it found as safe in the past, even if that is holding us from thriving and from living the life abundant in the future. And changing the beliefs our bodies hold takes a lot more time than just changing the beliefs in our mind, but it's got to start in our mind. It's got to start with consciousness, and it takes a daily commitment to letting the Lord renew our mind to be filled with the truth, so that we can recognize when the lies come, the limiting beliefs, the things that don't serve us are infiltrating our mind. The best among us, shout out Sip Drake, are ruthless gardeners of what they let in their mind, and they renew it on a daily basis. And like I said, this takes time. It's the beginning of a new journey for me. This has been the season of my life that I've been in, and it's been centered around really that one verse, that we can be transformed by the renewing of our mind, that we can change our thoughts, and ultimately we can change our stars. And the time is gonna pass anyway, right? 6 months from now, we'll always still be 6 months older. Why not be 6 months closer to who we want to be, 6 months closer to the character of Jesus? And nothing feels like it's changing, and you wake up and one day everything seems different. And that brings a smile to your face, to see how far that the Lord can bring you, even in a couple months' time. I certainly look back and I'm so much happier with where I am now, and with the muck and the mire that I was brought out of. So thank you for listening to me trying something new. I really hope this was helpful, and is something that I plan to continue to keep doing. I will talk to you all later.